Welcome to Derry was a hell of a ride. For the past couple of weeks, I've been hooked on this show and been waiting for every episode to drop impatiently. And whenever an episode ended, I was hungry for more and I was looking forward to the next Sunday. Now that the finale has been released, I can finally make my overall review for the first season of this show. So here we are today. Now, enough yapping said, let's start this video. Spoilers alert for Welcome to Derry. And don't forget that this video is entirely subjective and that you have the right to have your own opinion. So I find Welcome to Derry to be an entertaining show. I cannot say that I didn't have fun watching this show every single week because I was hooked by it. Now, this show is obviously not perfect. It has a couple of flaws. But before going into them, here's what I actually liked from this show. I think the characters overall were pretty appealing, and they all had an important role to make the story evolve, whether it was a small or big impact. I was attached to their storyline, and I think every single one of them brought something interesting to the story. The kids had a strong connection, and it was nice to see their relationship evolve. I think Marge was a bit annoying at first because of how selfish she was, but she had a nice character growth after all. Lily was honestly such a victim in this show. She was always caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, which made us, the viewers, more attached to her character, and we wanted her to be able to prove her innocence all the time. I think Clara Stagg gave the best performance out of the kid actors because of her capacity to transmit the emotions her character was feeling to the viewers. Ronnie's storyline was fine. Not the best, but it added more determination for her character. The plotline with her dad being wrongly accused was sad, but it wasn't the spotlight of the show for me. What I do appreciate from it though is the deeper and stronger message it brought to this show, with how black people weren't treated the same way as white people, which led to them sticking up for each other. This strong theme was also shared through Charlotte's character, which I think wasn't necessarily the spotlight of the show either, but at least she was used for a bigger cause and not just as a side character in Leroy and Will's journeys. Talking about Leroy and Will, I really like both characters as individuals and where their individual story went. But on the other hand, I wasn't convinced by their father and son relationship. I feel like their chemistry was a bit forced, and same goes for Will and his mother. Maybe it was a problem with the actors' chemistry, I don't know. But in the end, I was more interested in their individual journey. Now, Rich's character was weird at first, but I became attached to him, and I really like what his sacrifice brought, the emotional impact it had on the other kids. I think his death wasn't wasted and actually had a beautiful meaning behind it, even if the way he died felt a bit forced, and I don't know if Marge surviving the way she did was realistic or not. But hey, it's a show about a creature disguising himself as a clown to eat children, so at this point, might as well just sit down and watch the show. Now, I found how Lawrence's journey really interesting. The concept of his powers was really intriguing and fun to watch. It led to great moments. I also really liked the depression it gave him. Not in the sense that I like watching depressed people, but in the sense that I like that his powers challenged his mental health, because it brought out a more interesting side of his character. Now, the show uses different storylines to build up its main story, and each of them brings something different to this show, which is something that I appreciate. But not all of them were as interesting as the others. My favorite storyline was the kids', because they were trying to solve a mystery about an evil figure, and these characters were pretty likable, so it was fun following them and watching them end up in scary situations. Now, the military's storyline, on the other hand, felt unnecessary at the beginning of this season, but I was actually surprised by the direction it took after all. And I like that it added a mystery surrounding the general's real intentions towards the creature. Now, this storyline ended up disappointing me because I found its end goal unbelievable and stupid. Just that last scene with the general confronting Pennywise demonstrates how stupid and forced this storyline ended up being. But hey, at least it brought a unique and interesting point of view on the situation. Now, I enjoyed the dualism between the military's mentality and the natives' mentality. I think each of them brought a unique vision on the situation, and their confrontations added a lot of tension to the story, which I liked. Now, I think the natives' storyline was a bit underused overall, even if it brought an entire background story for Pennywise's creature. Their story was used mostly to build up a contextual environment for the evil figure of the show, but the natives themselves didn't have any sort of story growth. They were mostly there just to discuss, and only two characters from this plotline ended up doing something: Rose and Daniel. Their characters also felt a bit underused, if you would ask me. They were mostly used to answer questions surrounding the creature. Now, I really enjoyed Ingrid's journey. It might have been goofy for some viewers, but in my opinion, it brings out a new perspective on the situation. The perspective of someone that was close to the original Pennywise, Bob Gray. Yeah, the way she reacted when seeing her supposed father eating people was unbelievable. But overall, I think her journey and her motives were interesting to follow, and it brought many cool scenes surrounding how the creature ended up taking the form of Pennywise. Now let's finally talk about the spotlight of this show, the Big Wise himself. I think his character in this show was more interesting than he was in the other two movies of this universe. We finally got to see more of his origin story, and we watched him take the form of various nasty monsters, which I did like. But let's not lie here, he was more fun to watch during the second half of the show, because he finally decided to take on his Pennywise form. It led to many cool and unique scenes with his character that I loved very much. I think these unique scenes of him were my favorite parts of the show, and probably yours too. So yeah, overall, I had a lot of fun watching this show. It was a fun experience. Also, let me add a couple of honorable mentions before moving on to a more negative note. The opening title for this show is honestly one of my favorites of all time. I never skipped any of them because the visuals and the song playing are incredible and give such a great vibe. I'm also pretty happy that they didn't restrain the gore in this show, because I think it was important to show how much of a monster Pennywise is by showing how gruesome he can be. It also led to some scenes being more memorable. I also really like that this show connects other Stephen King stories, most notoriously with The Shining through Dick Halloran's character. Now, with all that said, let's talk about a couple of things that annoyed me a tiny bit in this show. Starting off with the CGI. Now, I'm not gonna act like I'm an expert in special effects, because believe me, I am not. But as a consumer, I found the visuals of this show weird at times. Sometimes it was the establishing shots that felt weird, and sometimes it was some of Pennywise's forms, especially the ghosts in the cemetery. It looked a lot like a Scooby-Doo type of scene. Now, I think the story felt a bit slow and unnecessary at times. It did take its time to establish itself and added a lot of scary scenes, but I feel like some of these scenes led to nothing and were just there to clip farm and be posted on social media to hype up the audiences. But hey, I'm a bit of a hypocrite here, because I expected this show to have many scenes of this kind. But what I do wish was that some of these unnecessary long scenes added something to the storyline. A motivation perhaps for a character, or an evolution for the plot plotline. Anyways, overall, I did enjoy most of these clip farming scenes, except the Scooby-Doo one. Now, with all that said, what did I think of this show overall? Well, it's a pretty unique show with many interesting storylines following the journeys of interesting and likable characters. This show is filled with scenes that are unforgettable because of how unique, gruesome, and horrifying they are. Pennywise's usage is really impactful in this show, and we get to see more of him than we ever did in the It movies. And we even get a background story for his character, which was really interesting to learn. Overall, this show was really fun to watch and discover. I had a great time during the past couple of weeks because of it. So I am going to give it a rating of 8 out of 10. Now we can expect this show to have more seasons coming up, seeing the teasing at the end of the finale and the popularity of the show. So count on me to be there when they'll release future seasons. What did you guys think of It Welcome to Derry Season 1? Tell me your opinions in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to this channel. It really helps small creators like me. Leave a like or dislike if you want, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya!